Hi everyone, my name is Adam Virgil, and in this video I'm going to go over how to use this force velocity profiling spreadsheet in Google Sheets that I made for you. It's based on the work of J.B. Marin and Pierre Samozino, and they've done a lot of incredible work in this area. They've outlined the guidelines for how to do force velocity profiling with jumping and sprinting, but this focuses jumping. And they have a lot of research, and those protocols and research are available here from this URL. They also have a spreadsheet in Microsoft Excel where you can look at an athlete's force velocity profile at a given time point. What makes this file a little bit different is that you can store the data for multiple athletes over multiple dates, and you can look at an athlete over time. And right now you can't do this, but in a future iteration you'll be able to compare athletes to one another. So let's go over how to collect the data, or how to put your data in here. And to do that, we'll go to our data entry tab. And I have a couple comments in here, if you scroll over them, that kind of just give you a little bit of guidance on some things. Let's go over this right here. This is an entry for one player for one date, or one athlete for one date. And the information that you'll need is a date, the athlete's name, their body mass in kilograms, their limb length in meters, their initial height in meters, which is a metric that J.B. Marin and Pierre Samozino discuss in their work through that URL that I mentioned earlier, and their jump height, and the additional mass used. Now, these 1, 2, 3, 4 rows represent 4 sets of jumps with different additional mass, or different additional loads used. So this athlete performed one series of 2 jumps with 0 additional mass, or their body weight. They performed 2 jumps with 20 kilograms of additional mass, and 2 jumps with 40 kilograms, and 2 jumps with 60 kilograms of additional mass. This is one record for one athlete on a date. And notice the athlete's name is repeated 4 times and the date is repeated 4 times. So that's what this means. And here's another record. This one is for player 2 on the same date, or another athlete on the same date. Now there's a plus button up here, and if you click it, there will be a couple more metrics on the side here, and I use these to calculate things for the force velocity profile and display it on the dashboard that we'll see next. And if you're interested in these metrics, you can look at them here, and if you are not, you can collapse them by clicking the minus button. Now how you get data in here is you just enter data beneath the last row, or in your case you might be replacing this information first. But let's say that we had another athlete test on 9/29/2020. And I'm just going to add it for player 1 and type in their body mass. Maybe he's 100 kilograms and 1.1. I'm just going to copy a different athlete, 1.09, 0.73, and I'll just give them some jump heights in meters. Let's say 0.333, 0.343, and additional mass 0. And if we open this up, the calculations will still apply to this athlete, and everything will be fine. But that's how you enter in data, and the athlete's name will appear in a drop-down on the dashboard and all that fun stuff. So I'll leave this in for now, and we'll go to our dashboard now. The first thing that you want to do when you're here is select your athlete of interest. And what we'll notice is if we click on this drop-down menu, we see the athlete that we just added. So the athletes that are in your data set, or in your data entry area, will appear in this drop-down. For example, if we go back to our data entry and we remove this athlete name, click enter, go back into dashboard, and we go to our drop-down, the athlete is no longer in our drop-down list. And again, you'll notice these comments. You can get rid of them. If you know what you're doing, you can just click this check mark and it'll go away. So we selected our athlete. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to select a date. This date that you select here, as I say in the comment, should be the later of the 2 dates that you select if you're selecting more than one. So let's see what dates are available for this athlete. We have 2 dates, 9/25 and 9/22. I'll pick the later one as instructed. And now we get a force velocity profile for this athlete. And here are some metrics from that profile. And this is really important. JB Morin and Pierre Somozino discussed this from that URL on the homepage. The R² value should be greater than or equal to 0.95 for it to be an accurately determined force velocity profile for the athlete. It's important to be aware of, if you see a number that's less than 0.9, it'll be red. If it's between 0.9 and 0.95, it'll be orange. And if not, it'll just be black. And what we also get is, if we scroll down a little bit further, we get a comparison between the athlete's current profile, the one that for this date that you've selected here, the more recent one, or whichever one is in this column, that profile, the one that's shown here, compared with the optimal 30-degree and 90-degree profiles. And rather than kind of butcher the definition of these things, I'll let you refer to JB Morin and Pierre Somozino's work for that. 30-degree orientation is pretty much horizontal force velocity profile, and 90-degree orientation is essentially vertical force velocity profile. And the way that you would interpret this gauge here, would be that for this athlete to reach the optimal 90-degree profile, their force needs development, or their force application needs development, as opposed to their velocity needing development. Now let's scroll back up, and you have an opportunity to add another date here for comparison if you'd like. And it's important, again, that this date here is the more recent of the two dates selected. And if I click on this drop-down, it looks like we do have another date for this athlete that we've selected, and I will select that date. And now we get the metrics for that date as well, and arrows indicating the percent change between this previous date and the current date. So this plus 0.6% up arrow here represents that their body mass increased by 0.6% between this date and that date. And you also get another force velocity profile layered on top of the other one. So if these are very different, you'll be able to see it. If they're not, then, for example, in this case, there's not too much going on here, but you'll be able to see differences between their force velocity profiles from these two dates. And similarly, you can always select a different athlete. And this athlete happens to have the same dates as the athlete prior. That's why these dates are okay, but you may have to click on here and select a different date if the date that is selected does not exist for the athlete that you've selected. So that's how this works. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about the sheet. If you have questions about the force velocity profiling stuff, reach out to JB Morin or Pierre Somozino. Our contact information is all on this homepage, and the link to their stuff is also on this homepage. I hope you have fun.